Good morning. You're listening to Insurance Matchmaking, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance. And now, sharing his knowledge, here's your host, Matt Libby.
All right, welcome back to Insurance Matchmaking. Going to talk about some controversial stuff today. Don't have a guest. Hopefully have a guest scheduled this week. But on the 4th of July, President Trump signed the OBBA bill, as I've heard it called, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Now that it has been signed into law, it is an act. So I've heard people refer to it as OBBA. I've also just seen it as OBBA. So we'll cover that. I get a kick out of some people making a big deal about the name of the bill and saying it's not beautiful. And, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not to you. It is big, but I get a kick out of people who are, it's not what it says it is. And it's like, you mean like No Child Left Behind, Affordable Care Act, Inflation Reduction Act. I'm trying to think. So there's so many things that they pass through Congress, and they actually do the opposite of what they're named. So take that as a grain of salt. I'm not trying to criticize or build up the bill, but there's going to be a lot of things that affect my realm. My circle of influence is being affected by the One Big Beautiful Bill. And I've already had clients question. One of them was regarding Medicare. And right now, I can't see anywhere where it's actually affecting Medicare. It's going to have some effect on those that are on the Affordable Care Act plans, and I'll get into that here in a bit. I'm hoping to get my CPA in on a show and talk about a lot of the tax things. Again, a lot of my clients are on Medicare. The Social Security part, taxation on Social Security's changed. I was just watching a video before I come in to record and talking about it didn't completely go away, but hopefully there should be some good breaks there. And if you're over 65, you're going to be able to take an extra deduction. Now, I believe that's all going to be in 2026. It's not going to affect this year. I thought the extra deduction was going to start this year, but I think they said, or part of it, I'm not sure which parts of it. Again, that's why I'd like to have my CPA come in and talk about it, because he's probably focused on those tax things. I'm more focused on what's happening in the health insurance realm. And then I mentioned with the ACA plans, there are some big changes. There's a lot of stuff in the press of, millions are going to lose their health care. They're gutting Medicaid and all of it, and there are some cuts there, but there's also a lot of hyperbole in those. These programs are being gutted. So first off, I'm going to touch on some of the basic premises on the Affordable Care Act. One of the things that transpired is the American Rescue Plan, which was the first big piece of legislation in the Biden administration, changed the way the tax credits. We had expanded tax credits I know if you listen to me a lot, you know what I'm talking about when I say tax credits. The Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, has the way the plans are made affordable are your premiums are subsidized, and they are subsidized by you getting what's called the advanced premium tax credit. So it's based on your income, and it's based on the income of the year that you are going to have the insurance. So I tell people, I said, I don't care how much you made last year. And they look at me kind of fun. It doesn't have anything to do with what your tax credit will be this year. Now, it does help us estimate what your taxes will be, or your taxable income will be this year. So the way to do it, and it's so frustrating, is I always say we have to look at last year's taxes so we can estimate your income for next year. So like the current year that we're doing the calculations generally are kind of out the window, because it's the tax return is what the marketplace is looking at for your income. And we usually have to, sometimes you have to prove your income if it doesn't match close. If there's a big discrepancy between what your income was when in your last taxes and what it currently is. And the one that always gets me, because somehow when they put the formula in, is they want proof if it's a big difference in income from the previous year. Now, I understand if you're saying, hey, I made $100,000, your taxes said you made $100,000, and now you're filling out your application for health insurance, and you say you make $40,000, so you can get the tax credit and make it kind of affordable. The marketplace is going to go, oh, wait a minute, you made $100,000 last year. Prove to us that you really have lowered your income, and why, or tell us why that income's lower before we give you this tax credit. The one that baffles me is I take a person who's made $40,000 last year, and they fill it out, and this year they say they're going to make $80,000, and they're going to get much less tax credit. Or no tax credit, and I guess it wouldn't matter if there's no tax credit, but they send out, prove your income. You've got 90 days to submit that proof. And it's like, I'm asking for less tax credit than I got last year. Why are you worried about that? But the government, they put an algorithm and they say if the difference is this much, then that's the way I understand. So that's how the tax credit part works. So during the name just left me, and I just said it a minute ago, the American Rescue Plan Act, that expanded the tax credits, because one of the big things that affected people before, and I've had some clients that got themselves in trouble, is to be eligible for the tax credit, you have to be at 100% of the poverty level up to 400%. Now, and I'm not going to get into some of the other percentages that come in there, but I wanted to focus on those two things of between those incomes, you are eligible for a tax credit. If you're below that income, the federal government determines you should be on Medicaid, which is TennCare in our case. Not everybody gets that, so we're below income. So you have to have that minimum income to get the tax credit. And if you have that minimum income, boy, that your insurance is going to be very affordable and possibly even a zero premium, and you have reduced out-of-pocket costs like deductibles and all that. But up to at 400%, you still have actually halfway decent tax credit to pay for those very expensive health insurance premiums. But if you underestimated your income and you were right at that threshold of that 400%, when you go to file your income tax the next year, and that's the problem, is you got that tax credit from January to December, and maybe it was a substantial tax credit, and then sometime in March or April, you're filing your income tax, and if you did an extension, it's even longer, and maybe you're getting that tax credit again that second year, and then you file your taxes, and you went over that 400%, because I actually had this happen to a client. They owed everything back for their taxes, plus they'd been receiving some this year, and they had a big tax bill, and they just were really in a mess there. So that was changed, and it changed to you should receive a tax credit is because you shouldn't be paying more than 8.8% of your income for the benchmark silver plan in your area. So we had people who were at 450, maybe even 500% of poverty level still receiving a tax credit. But that was set to expire at the end of this year. So in 2026, that expanded tax credit is not happening. The other thing that's I'm getting ahead of myself. So there's going to be people who were either close to or over that 400% threshold that are probably going to need to do something for their health insurance for the year 2026. And in the past, most of my clients that affected were those that were usually in their 60s, not quite old enough for Medicare, just needed something to cover them for the next couple of years. Maybe they started drawing their Social Security and retired from a job, but they, or one spouse was still working, and their income was just over that 400%, and the plans, the Affordable Care Act plans, are no longer affordable at that time, and that's where the short-term plans come in very helpful on those that are healthy enough to get those plans. They have health insurance for less than half of what they would pay for a marketplace plan. They have something to cover their catastrophic needs if something does arise. So they have some health insurance. So they don't have to worry about losing their house because they had a big medical emergency. One of the things, though, during the Biden administration, they took away where we were able to sell those in 3-year blocks where You have to be healthy enough to get the plan, but we were able to sell 3 years at one time so that year 2 or 3, if you wouldn't be healthy enough to get one of those plans, you still could keep your plan. And those came in very handy. Like I said, worked really great for those that were 62, 63. They just needed 2 to 3 years to get them to Medicare. Those plans worked great. We're hoping to have something in place by open enrollment this year, but there's a lawsuit going on where a lot of the insurance companies took on the Biden administration in court, and then back in May, a judge put a stay on that lawsuit, so they're supposed to resume in August, so hard telling what's going to be the result of that. But we're hoping, at least by the end of that lawsuit, that we'll be back to be able to sell those short-term plans and carry them out for a 3-year stretch. But that's not guaranteed. The other thing is I do have, so this will apply for a lot of my clients or potential clients that may be in that situation, is I have signed up to be able to be a representative for Medicare, the Christian Health Sharing Program. And again, like the short-term plans, they are a lot less outlay monthly cost than a Affordable Care Act plan. And the nice thing about the Medicare plan is once you're on the plan, you don't have to renew anything. You just continue to pay it every month, and it keeps going. So I'm not going to get into big detail on how those plans work. If you want to find out how a Medicare plan will work, reach out to me, and we can sit down. And it's something we don't have to wait till the open enrollment time. If you thought about going that route, we can do that now. You don't have to wait for November, and especially depending on what you may be paying for your health insurance, it might make sense to go ahead and look into that Medicare option. So I've kind of covered the part about the tax credits. I am going, and those on the higher income side, I am going to touch after the break about those that are on the lower income side and also having the effect with the Medicaid. So stay tuned after the break, and we will touch on those ramifications of the One Big Beautiful Bill on the lower income and the fear of people losing their health coverage, and we'll cover that after the break. So be right back.
If you're waking up multiple times a night, if you're always looking for the next bathroom, if your BPH symptoms are controlling your day or your confidence, you're not alone, and you do have options. At Upper Cumberland Urology at Cookeville Regional, we're proud to offer aquablation therapy, a breakthrough robotic treatment for enlarged prostates that's precise, gentle, and preserves what matters most, your anatomy. Aquablation combines the power of water with robotic precision to remove only tissue that's causing your symptoms, without cutting, burning, or compromising your quality of life. It's FDA approved, backed by strong clinical results, and available right here in the Upper Cumberland. You don't have to choose between relief and function. It's time to stop living around your symptoms and start living again. Call 931-783-4103 today and ask if aquablation is right for you. That's 931-783-4103. Upper Cumberland Urology at Cookeville Regional, where precision meets peace of mind. Cookeville Regional Medical Center. It's the way we care.
You've waited too long covering your mouth when you laugh, too long chewing on one side, or not at all, too long feeling ashamed. I'm Dr. Kevin Hayes, and at Hayes Family Dentistry right here in Cookeville, we help people just like you every single day.
I'm Dr. Sandy Hayes, and if fear of the dentist holds you back, we offer sedation dentistry, safe, gentle, and proven. You'll rest through your care, you won't feel pain, and often we can do years of work in just one visit. It's not too late. You haven't waited too long. Call Hayes Family Dentistry today at 931-526-1614 or visit hayesdentistry.com. Come in for a consultation where we welcome you like family.
And now, back to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby Insurance.
All right, and we are back to Insurance Matchmaking. Before the break, I Well, the first part of the show, I talked about the one big, beautiful little effects on the healthcare marketplace plans. Talked about those that are on the higher side on the income scale, and now I'm going to talk about those that are on the lower side. So one of the things when they passed the Affordable Care Act back in 2010 and started enrolling in 2013 for a 2014 January 1st effective date. So, people always think they pass a law and everything's going to change, next week. And generally, most of the time, there's quite a phase-in on these plans. So anyway, the part of the plan was for the states to expand their Medicaid. And so generally, it's those under that 100% of the poverty level. That's the ones who qualify for Medicaid based on income. Now, there are other qualifications that come into play, whether you have cancer, whether you are a child, whether you are pregnant, those things like that. So there's some things that, in addition to the income, that will qualify you for Medicaid, or you need the combination of those to actually qualify. So with the Affordable Care Act, it raised to 138% those who were eligible for the expanded Medicaid. So one of the things that made a big change was, and especially in Tennessee was one of the states that did not expand Medicaid, didn't trust the government, the federal government, to keep up their end, and felt that and not just Tennessee, but the other states that did not do the expanded Medicaid were concerned that we'd be left holding the bag of paying out of the state coffers to cover people who had some income but wouldn't be eligible for Medicaid under the 100% rule, and so they didn't depend on the federal government to pay their percentage of that bill. And one of the things on that is it went up over the years, 90% and 95% of what the federal government was reimbursing on those. Now, what I'm understanding is, and I'm not positive on this, it's just something I was listening to when it had to do with the one beautiful bill, is the reimbursement for the expansion is only going to be 80%. So some states are going to have less money to pay out those that will qualify for the expanded. So some of those states may cut back on the Medicaid. So they keep talking about these people, they're going to lose their Medicaid. Well, the ones that are going to lose Medicaid are those that probably shouldn't have it anyway. If they are able to work, there are things they could do. They do qualify for the healthcare marketplace plans, but they may have to pay a little bit. And that's the thing that bugs me when I keep talking about all these millions of people are going to lose health coverage. The millions of people who are going to lose health coverage, it's going to be by their choice, not because their health care was just taken away. They may lose the Medicaid, but as I mentioned, if they have some income, they should, those that were getting it because of the expansion of Medicaid have income. They have some income. So they should still qualify to get an Affordable Care Act plan. But they might have to pay some. So that's going to be part of it. And also I talked about before the break on those of the higher income. Now, some of those people are going to drop their ACA plans because they're not getting the tax subsidy they were getting. So now it's no longer affordable. So you do have some of those people who will lose their health care. So there's going to be changes in people's health care. Some people are going to choose to go without insurance because they don't want to pay a higher amount for it. But that's not the same thing as just having your health care taken away. I mean, if you're those that have Medicaid, have no income, still will qualify for Medicare, most of those should still keep their Medicare. Now, again, state by state, it changes. Medicaid's one of those weird animals. It's a federal program, but it's administered by the states. So the states decide who gets on it, and then they get reimbursement from the federal government tax dollars. So, yes, it can vary from state to state. Tennessee is one of those states that doesn't pay out, doesn't approve a lot of people for TennCare. So, yes, there's going to be people who may lose their coverage. The other thing that was going to be a biggie on it is that generally with TennCare, Medicaid, once a year, you have to recertify that you're still eligible. That's going to change to every 6 months. So And if that's not submitted, then you have to turn in that paperwork. If you don't turn it in, then they will cut off your Medicaid. So that's one of the things that will affect folks could possibly lose their coverage and like I said, they'll lose their coverage because they are not paying for their coverage because it may be affordable, but they will be eligible to have health care, but like I said, it may be more coming out of their pocket. And I found that it's amazing, especially when they first started the Affordable Care Act. There were people who thought, hey, everything's going to be free, and found out they were going to have to pay $10 a month. And it's like, I'm not paying $10 a month. It's supposed to be free. People actually did that. So, and a lot of that is that I think the perception for the general public was the people who got their insurance through their employer weren't paying anything for their insurance. And so everybody thought, oh, insurance is so unaffordable. And it actually wasn't as unaffordable as a lot of people made out. And that was where the Affordable Care Act came in. And then you had a lot of people lost their health insurance because maybe they didn't qualify for a tax credit. And in those first couple of years, insurance rates doubled, tripled, and quadrupled. And so you had people losing their health insurance because they could no longer afford it because they weren't eligible for the Affordable Care Act subsidies because they were over that 400% threshold, whereas before they could afford their health insurance. So it went both ways. So so there's going to be some changes there of what's affordable, who's going to be covered. And in some ways, I am not looking forward to the enrollment season this year. I am and I'm not. The good news is I probably will be very busy, should get a lot of new clients because people who are finding out that things are changing for them are going to be reaching out to me. And then I'm going to have all my existing clients that I'm going to have to make sure that are taken care of because everything's changing. The Inflation Reduction Act made big changes to the drug coverage for Medicare Advantage. So we're expecting a lot of changes this fall with the Medicare plans for next year. And, of course, even if I knew what plans have changed, I couldn't tell you that until October. But the other is with the Affordable Care Act, subsidies are going to be different. It's those that may be qualified. It's not going to affect those that qualify for the what we call the cost-sharing reduction. That part there should still stay the same. It still should be from 100% to 250% of the poverty level should qualify for some cost-sharing help on silver plans. We'll see how that goes. But that will be something to watch. And like I said, we have a lot of things that are going to change with people's Medicare plans, so I'm going to have to be working on that. I had thought on that, and now I forgot what I was going to say, was on the lower income, the 150%. That's what it was. Currently, we have a special enrollment to get people on a healthcare marketplace plan if their income is below 150% of the poverty level. So if you're between that 100% and 150%, we can still get you a special enrollment and get you healthcare coverage now. So if you are or know someone with a low income and just thought they couldn't get insurance, get with us. Let's see if we can get something in place for you now. Because like I said, if you're under that 150%, we believe that special enrollment is not going to no longer exist next year. But, open enrollment, it doesn't come into play. You don't need a special enrollment. Right now, we do still have the special enrollment opportunity if your income is below 150% of the poverty level. So for an individual, that's somewhere around $22,000, $22,500, somewhere in there, under $23,000 for a single person, no dependents. If your income is below that $23,000, you should be able to get a special enrollment now, and you get a substantial subsidy and still qualify for a very substantial cost share reduction on those silver plans. Now, usually what happens there is you're probably going to have a premium on most silver plans, but it's going to be very low, but you have a much lower deductible, lower copays, and a lower maximum out of pocket. Or you can get a zero premium bronze plan. You'll have some low copays, but you're going to have a very high deductible and max out of pocket. So it generally makes sense, $20, $30 for a silver plan with those lower out-of-pocket costs actually is going to be in your best interest. But if you think you might qualify for that special enrollment, get a hold of me. There's plenty of time. And as long as we do it before the last day of the month, it does take effect the next month. I had somebody call me just recently and called me on July 1st. So I was able to get her enrolled, she is going to actually have a zero premium plan, but it doesn't start until August 1st because it was July when we did the application. If she had called me on the 30th, on that Monday, I could have done it then, and it would have been in effect already on the 1st of July. So timing matters. Try not to wait till the last of the month, but the thing is, if you call, first or second of the month, we can't backdate anything. It will be the first of the following month. That's just how it works on the marketplace. Any changes affect on the first of the following month. So open enrollment this year, I think, and I'm not real crazy about it, I think what I've heard is the open enrollment is going to go to the end of December. So that means people will probably be calling us around Christmas. Used to get a really good break at Christmas time is the Medicare annual election period would end on December 7th, and then I had 1 week of crunch time to get people enrolled so they have their health insurance in place for January 1st from the marketplace, and that would be on the 15th. And what I understand this year, they're not going to go to January 15th, but it is going to go to the end of the year. So everybody's going to have this year from November 1st to December 31st is what I understand for the open enrollment. And so the deadline won't be the 15th. We will still try to push people to get that done before the 15th. But I usually work during that time anyway. It's usually just more of a kind of a catch-up time and get things taken care of for my clients. But we will help everybody up until the deadline, but I don't plan on staying up New Year's Eve doing health applications. I probably won't be that patient with somebody that calls me basically like on a holiday to get it done when they already had 2.5 months to do it. So until next week, keep listening to Grace 107.7 and tune into Insurance Matchmaking. You can go to insurancematchmaking.com to suggest show topics. And always remember, at Matt Libby Insurance, we cover you from head to toe. It doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. And we'll talk to you next week.
You've been listening to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance.